Well, my favorite one was and I'll tell you the shortened version of it, but my favorite one was the grandpa who took his 4-year-old grandson or 5-year-old grandson out with him to check the heifers one Saturday, and they were calving, and so he was riding out there to check them when sure enough there's a young heifer and she's struggling, and he knows I've got to help her, and she's been calving for a while and I don't have time to take him back to the house. I've got to help her now. And he strips his shirt and he gets on his gloves and he jumps in there with the chains and he pulls and twists and gets the grandson to hand him things. And anyway, in about 20 minutes he had to help that heifer have that baby. And when it was all done, heifer got up, licked the calf, everything's good, happy, and he goes back to the truck to clean up, and then he looks down at his little grandson and he says, "Oh boy, what kind of questions are going to come next?" Because you know how those young boys are, there are a million questions. Sure enough, he looked up at Grandpa and he says, "Grandpa, I just got one question." He said, "Oh no, here it comes." He said, "I guess I got to explain the birds and the bees." By that time, the little boy said, "Just how fast was that calf running when he ran into her?" One of the things that I've recognized a number of years ago was that this area is tremendously dependent on some form of stored, preserved forage to survive the winter. And most of what people make is dry hay. That's the system that's been around, but there is tremendous variation in the quality of that hay that's produced, and people just don't recognize what they're producing and how good it is. So it's kind of like soil testing before you farm. In modern agriculture, where you're trying to be very efficient with fertilizer dollars, you want to soil test and you want to know exactly what I've got to do. And now we're even doing variable rate fertilization. We're not even just checking for an average of the field. We want to know each zone how much fertilizer to apply. Well, the same thing's true with feeding cattle. I mean, one of our great expenses is nutrition, and we've got to get those cattle through winter. And in the South, we make it even harder because we got to market those cattle early to hit the market. And so we're calving at the worst time of the year for forages. We're calving in the fall when the pastures are declining, and then there is no pasture. We're feeding hay. So we're using the worst forage period to try to have cows with calves when they have their peak nutritional need. So you put all that together, and it really tells you that if we're going to do well, if we're going to have high reproduction, if we're going to have an efficient herd, then we need to do variable rate feeding. We can't just feed with a recipe that Granddaddy or Daddy used and we've done for years, because every year is different. This year it started raining in June and it didn't stop until September, and we put up some sorry hay, very mature, because we just didn't have a dry window. So it's really essential to know what is in that hay, or what's not in that hay is more another way to say it. So we buy the right supplement, so we keep those cattle in good enough shape that not only is she going to do a good job of raising that calf, producing milk, but she's going to have some energy left to rebreed, because we only have 80 days from the time she calves until she's rebred, if we're going to keep her in a year-round calving interval. So we got to be on top of our game if we're going to do that, especially in a year like this one where we've got less than adequate hay. We did the best we could. It was not a good year for, we didn't have good windows with perfect weather in the summer. We'll make some good hay this fall, but that won't be enough. We'll have to rely on some poor quality hay to survive this winter. So we got to know how bad it is, and we need to look at each cutting and see, all right, the fall cutting was great. We can feed that first, but later on we're going to have to feed some of this mature hay we cut this summer, and we need to know what to go with it. If I had a nugget of wisdom to share, it would be find something you're passionate about and build a life and a career around that. Don't look just at the money that you can make, or because you're going to spend whatever you make, no matter what level you're into. The key thing is to get up every day excited about what you're going to do.